And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America. But this attack, to be effective, must also be organized at the state and the local level and must be supported and directed by state and local efforts. For the war against poverty will not be won here in Washington. It must be won in the field, in every private home, in every public office, from the courthouse to the White House.
My experience with UCAP goes back to the very beginning, and that was in the mid-60s. I was a friend of Bonnie John's. She was a very strong woman, and she was so gifted. She was an excellent speaker, for one thing. She was an excellent, she was a prolific writer, and she could convince people pretty quickly that she knew what she was talking about and could get them engaged in helping themselves. And of course, she bumped heads a lot of times when you're trying to have people go down to a county meeting and say, I want to be heard, and go to a school board meeting and say, I want to be heard. And she convinced them you could do it. And but it was racist, it was sexist, it was all those things. But I think Bonnie she had what it took to do that. When she got the funding for UCAP, she asked me to be her office manager. And I worked with her with that program for about 3 years before I left to go back to school. And it was quite an experience because this was new. You know, remember, in the 60s, Prince George's was a totally different place. Totally different place. And hiring the community organizers who themselves didn't feel they had ownership of anything. You had to, and they were the ones going to have to go out and work in these 11 communities. And that time was to get people to understand that if they worked together, they represented power in this community. Everything was segregated at that time. And to see Bonnie working with 11 communities and training community organizers who were just housewives and men in the community who had never had positions of great authority. But they did a wonderful job in trying to get people organized to say that we can have a say in how our children are educated. We can have a say in what schools are going to be closed down when funding gets tight. And those issues were major at that time. And housing, of course, was segregated. You didn't have access to the programs that you have now. So when you talk about a foundation, it was really laying a foundation for our community action program.
I go back to 1977 when the board, then former executive director Edith Jameson and Lona Hatter, came to the council. I was working for the county council, and they wanted UCAP to be designated as the official community action agency for Prince George's County. Then you had to have that designation to get funds from Community Services Administration. And I proceeded was given the job to draft a resolution which made that designation. And I knew then that UCAP had a special place in Prince George's County because there were a lot of concerns that were not being met at that time. We had a problem with homelessness. We had a problem with really not being our brother's keeper. And I thought it was important to have an organization like UCAP to fill that void because we have challenges in Prince George's County. At the time, I worked for County Executive Paris Glendenning. I started the first task force on homelessness. And somebody told me, we don't have homeless people in Prince George's County. And I said, the reason you don't see our homeless people is because we don't have grates like a city has, that you see people sleep on them. People didn't realize that people were sleeping in the parks in their cars. So we had these challenges. We still have these challenges, but it's because of UCAP that we've been able to begin to address them.
Things are quite dire for a lot of people. I didn't realize how bad things were until I started talking to people here at the shelter, and especially Gwen Ferguson, who loves this place. I didn't realize how much poverty there is in the region. I didn't realize that there were people living in the woods down near, not far from where I live, in Bowie, until I talked to Gwen, because she has her fingers on the pulse of what's going on here in our county.
What UCAP does is it provides a space where we work on the problems that people are afraid to focus upon. And I think what's most important about UCAP is that if each of us did something, I don't care what it is, to help the causes that UCAP brings to the forefront, if we're not embarrassed or ashamed or so busy trying to save face, then there wouldn't be any homelessness in Prince George's County, and there wouldn't be any problems in the world. So I'm just honored that I had an opportunity to be with UCAP for so long, and I'm so thrilled at the progress that it's made right now, and I just look toward the future because I know there's much on the horizon.
The mission of UCAP is to alleviate poverty for the diverse community. The demographics of the county continue to change. What we do and what UCAP does in the community is very important. I mean, no one should go without dinner. No one should go without home. And I do remember many years ago, my parents lost a house. I went through that, losing a home. So I feel, I have to give back to the community and help people in the community. And the county it's a great county to live in, but we have people that are in need, and we have to do a lot more.
In the future, we not only want to do the core items that we do, from housing, education, workforce, shelter, in those areas with food and clothing, we want to be able to say, what is that next piece of where is poverty? Poverty, the face of poverty is changing every day. It's not you don't have a job so you're poor. It's not that you don't have a house so you're homeless. It's you and me. It's people who live paycheck to paycheck. Something can devastate you and you're gone in the blink of an eye. So we have to be prepared for that. It's a whole different type.
It will not be a short or easy struggle. No single weapon or strategy will suffice. But we shall not rest until that war is won.